although there was a steam-driven crane which would winch the bags into the cargo hold, you had to have a lot of wharfies who could bag it and make sure it was safe and do all the necessary work. You can see in that picture alone, it was very busy. So then in 1958, the Bundaberg port was built with a bulk sugar terminal. So that's like, I don't know if you've ever been inside the Hervey sugar factory, there's a big shed and there's a mountain of sugar. It's kind of like what they do with coal, and then you have a conveyor belt, and so instead of bagging it and putting it so laboriously, what they do is they have this shed with a mountain of sugar, and it would go up in a conveyor belt straight into the ship. And so suddenly every man you see in that picture doesn't have a job, and it's a lot cheaper. So once Bundaberg had a bulk sugar transport system, the bag sugar export from Urangan Pier pretty much stopped overnight. And that was pretty much the last cargo that was suitable for export through Urangan Pier. Fortunately, at that time, which is about the late 50s and 1960, Caltex saw a need in this growing area to bring in petroleum products. So that would be off of Elizabeth Street, looking at what's now Sea Change Retirement Village. So in 1960, Caltex recognized the need to have a petroleum depot there. And so what would happen is you'd have these huge tankers, which were quite a bit bigger than the cargo ships that had been servicing the port of Urangan for the decades prior, would bring the petroleum, and then it would get piped. It would get piped along the pier to its terminal, and they put in this steel pipe. They kept the railways, which we'll talk about in a minute. So that then created another use for the next quarter century, actually. So that would they would berth there, and then it would get tanked to it would get piped to the tanks, which were bounded by Damon and Elizabeth Street. They had to construct a few extra things because of the much larger ships called dolphins, which are these structures that were at sea, which then could be used sort of to tie the ships down when they were berthing. Unfortunately, they're gone as well. I mentioned before the railway line. This is a picture taken at Hervey Historical Village. It's called Radish. So that's the little sort of engine that would take the wharfies out to the end of the pier, the Caltex workers, which is why they as you see, they kept the railway line flat. So it was used throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s for the Caltex, and I think that probably saved the pier. If in the 1960s there was no use, no commercial use for it, there wouldn't have been a government or the population of Hervey Bay or community spirit which would have enabled, I think, the pier to be saved. So it was only through that last quarter century, which is actually quite a substantial period in terms of the Urangan Pier's economical life, when Caltex was there, that we have the pier now, or what's left of the pier. So that's the economic products which prospered as a result of the pier. I just want to talk a bit about sort of some of the social aspects. The arrival of the Pyle railway station in 1896 really kick-started tourism here, because then people could come on day trips or longer. But one special event which happened every year was the railway picnics. And this really, I think, was a very, of all the events in Hervey Bay, this is something that ran for decades. Every year it was organized by the railway employees. And so one day every year, thousands, sometimes it was 11 or 12,000 people would arrive in Hervey Bay for a single day called the railway picnic. Sometimes it was organized for Scarness, Torquay, and very occasionally Urangan. So trains would come from all over the region, Proston, Mergen, Monto, down to Gympie, Kingaroy, Bundaberg. So they'd all converge. Obviously, if it was coming from Monto, they'd have to leave at 3 a.m. in the morning. They'd arrive here, and so basically they had to rack and pack the trains all the way along the pier. So people would come, they'd spend the day here. It was really geared towards children. So children would get watermelon and ice cream, and there were games organized for the day. You can see there the swimming enclosure in the background. So one sort of event that was organized on the day, which we're going to recreate for the Urangan Pier Centenary, is the sand gardens. I'll show you a few pictures of this. And I'm showing this because this is only possible because of the railway which was built for the pier. So they organize these competitions, and you'll see in these photos that they were actually really sun-smart back then. Maybe it's because they're from the country, and they're not, maybe it was an outing to the beach for the day, so they all wore hats. But basically they had these competitions where you're given maybe a 3x3 meter square section, and you had to make a garden using stuff you found on the beach, like seaweed and shells. And some of them were remarkably creative. That'll be, that's whatever the seal of Queensland is. I don't know what that cross is called. That one they made of a bird. Very elaborate. And this is the more recent one, actually. And you can see they're no longer sun-smart. So I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's happened. They've done this obviously in the 60s or 70s, and they're no longer wearing hats. And they're no longer as good designs. But then another, and see this earlier, you see the hats again. Another thing that we're going to try and recreate for the Urangan Pier centenary is the treasure hunts. Yes. So the children would dig and try and find like a penny, and then we exchange it for a prize. So these events brought kids, many of these kids might not have ever seen the beach before, but because of the railway line and the railway union employees who organized the day, they all came here for one really big day, which galvanized everyone from Kingroy up to Bundaberg and everywhere in between. For a day called the Railway Picnics. So that ran from basically from around 1915 or 1916 right to the early 70s. So I mentioned before that the Caltex, that class, that's probably a cargo ship. No, that'll be an oil tanker. As you can see, I mentioned before the dolphins. These lines would be going to one of the dolphins to tie it in because it was too big for what the original design of the wharf for cargo ships. So that would have been taken in the early 1970s. The very last tanker arrived in January 1985, and there have been rumors from before that the pier would be demolished. The railway line at that time was still limping along as a goods line. The very last, the last regular passenger service had ceased in 1972. That's a rail motor at Urangan. So that ceased in 1972, and then over time, freight steadily declined. And then on the 12th of July, 1993, State Cabinet released the government's 1993-1994 budget statement. And because the election wasn't due until 1995, they could get out the bad news. So they identified 29 uneconomic branch lines for closure by the 1st of January 1994. Of course, there was immediate outrage, even though these were just goods lines, there was still lots of jobs and community pride in having a railway line. And so then, within weeks, the state government announced on the 26th of July a rail task force, which would be undertaken, so a review into how they had identified these 29 uneconomic branch lines. They went ahead and closed those lines to save money in future years. And then, fortunately, they tore up the railway line, but fortunately, we've still got the corridor, which is now the mobility corridor. The Pier Committee had been formed loosely in the early 1980s, and then sort of incorporated in the mid-1980s, due to a lack of maintenance of the pier and rumors that it was demolished. So there have been a lot of holidaying farmers from the South Burnett and the Darling Downs, who I guess had National Party links, who sort of said, we've heard that it's going to be demolished. So people locally were hearing from people from farther afield that they knew that there were plans to eventually close it down. And that sort of started the local fishing community and broader community to raising awareness. The Urangan Progress Hall that's mentioned there, that's the QCWA Hall, which was originally Jazzland, the nightclub entertainment area. So the committee formed, and they tried to do voluntary maintenance of the thing and arranged for a lease of it. So this is the relevant minister for, I guess, transport and ports, John Golby. Just read. So this is every year on New Year's Day they release a lot of cabinet stuff that was confidential, So this has been released fairly recently in the last few years in relation to 1985. So this was what went up to the Bjelke-Petersen cabinet, and I'll just talk about a couple of things in it. So this went up on the 4th of March 1985. So as you can see, paragraph 1 says, as part of the departmental responsibility for providing wharf facilities for the Port of Maryborough, the Harbours Corporation has operated and maintained a jetty and wharf at Urangan. This timber jetty has been in operation since 1917, and with the decline in number of vessels using the wharf over the past 2 decades, port revenues have been insufficient to fund full maintenance, and the structure has deteriorated. And then 2 says the decision they made in the previous year, April 16th and the 24th of April 1984, Cabinet decided, 1, the use of the Harbours Corporation of Queensland Wharf at Urangan cease as from December 31st, 1984, and 2, that the Harbours Corporation examine whether any alternative non-commercial use is available for the jetty stem or wharf, and report back to Cabinet through the Honourable Minister. And then they had got, at point 5, they refer to representations from a consortium of fishers. Obviously, the jetty was an amazing fishing spot, which local fishermen and the bait and tackle shops didn't want to lose. So they put forward a proposal to lease it. But state government, as you see there, legal liability, couldn't agree to the proposal to lease it to locals. So, so then they went ahead and looked, you see point 8, they sought tenders for the demolition of it. And I see this all the time actually in council. You put out a tender, and somebody says they'll do it for $182,000, and somebody says they'll do it for $999,000. So the Dean brothers didn't put anything in. So, and that's point 7 is where he says, accordingly, I consider it is now appropriate to demolish the wharf head, and the short section of the outer jetty stem between the wharf head and front lead tower. And then he leaves it till later, the actual question of demolishing the jetty stem, which is what we have now. You call it the jetty stem. So he went to that, John Golby went to that cabinet meeting with these recommendations, that the approval be granted to demolish, and then those other points just about how to do it. Cabinet, for some reason, didn't accept that recommendation. What they decided is that further consideration of the contents of the submission be deferred until the meeting held in March. They didn't actually do it at March, so they basically said they needed more time. It wasn't until May. They came back in the 7th of May, which Cabinet actually functioned quite different back then. This is before they really, system of government in Queensland was modernized. This is in May 1985, and they're considering, this is Cabinet, so Bjelke-Petersen and the other ministers, decision number 45,980. like way too much stuff went to Cabinet. Anyway, this is something I probably should have. So this went to Cabinet in May, and you'll see the important point there is number 4. They spent that time negotiating with the council, and the council sent a telex to the effect that it was prepared to accept a lease of the pier stem for an initial period of 2 years. And so that would give the council, which I guess it was Bill Elson Green at the time, was the mayor, enough time to work out if it was economically viable, if they wanted to do it, if there was community support. So that was the key decision that had been taken between that earlier one and now. And so then it came back, and then the decision is on the front, and so you'll see that the new decision says that they lease it to the city of Hervey Bay for 2 years, and then they gave the approval to the lowest to demolish the wharf shed to the lowest bidder, which is $214,000 in the end. So that was, and at that stage, so they went ahead and demolished it, and then over the next couple of years, the council, I think Judy Rice then became mayor, and they had to work out how they would fund it. They did it through obviously they got a lot of state government support, but a great deal of local just community support. There were working bees. Since then, obviously every single pylon's been replaced, much of the decking. And what you see in many of those pictures no longer exists. But the purpose of the Urangan Pier, which you see in this picture, was the connection of two forms of transport, rail overland with rail, so with the boats. So the purpose of building out over the water like that was to connect two vitally important transport systems in the start of the 20th century. But over time, and certainly since that, many other uses, and now its principal use is as a recreational facility, people walking out there, enjoying the outdoors environment, and fishing. So hopefully we'll still be around in another century, and a whole other generation will love and appreciate it. But I hope you learn more about the Urangan Pier, and please come along on Saturday the 4th of March to the centenary. Thank you.